Okay, so in this video, we're actually going to start inputting the numbers for cash crop number 1. Just a reminder, everything that's shaded is protected and you will not be able to edit any shaded cells. But let's get started at the bottom. While it might be tempting to start at the top, I'm going to ask that you start right with the expenses and then we're going to work our way back up. So in this case, my cash crop number 1 is a value add product. So I'm not going to be putting anything in the plant, fungi, or livestock category, just the value add category. So for supplies, the item that I'm going to be having in cash crop number 1 is fertilizer. So obviously I'm going to need rabbit poop. I happen to get that for free, so there's no cost to me there. So that's about it on that. Now, I will need some gas to go get that rabbit poop, and it's probably going to cost me about 20 bucks in gas to go get it. And I will have some labor, but we'll talk about that down in the labor section. Next, let's talk about equipment. I will need some trash bags. I will need trash cans. And the trash bags are the construction trash bags. I usually can get those in bulk for like 30 bucks. The trash cans are, I think, $40 each. I've already got 5 of them, but let's just pretend I don't. And then that holds the rabbit fertilizer while we get ready for it to be processed. And then let me go ahead and put 200 just to reflect the fact that I have 5. Now, the other thing that I'm going to need in the way of equipment are bags. For my packaging, I'm going to need a stamp. And the bags will run me, a case of bags will run me about $111 for 100 bags. The stamp is not that much, 20 bucks on Vistaprint. And then the stickers that I put on the label, and those stickers run me, those are Avery address labels, and they run me about 30 bucks. Okay, so we've got our supplies, we've got our equipment. Now let's move on down to hourly rate and hours. So it takes us probably about 2 hours to go get the rabbit poop and then bring it back and process it. Let's go ahead and call that 5 hours to do 100 bags. So altogether 5 hours, and typically I would pay my boys to do that. So we're gonna call that about $15 an hour. So we got $75 worth of labor. And on my rabbit poop, I am very much so wanting to get the most margin I can absolutely get out of it. And so I'm going to ramp this up to about 70. Actually, let's go ahead and go to 90%. Okay. So I want a 90% margin on this rabbit poop. I want to get everything I can get out of it. So let me go up to the top and see what's happening. Now, as you can see here, it's saying that I need to price each bag at $1,059.73. Well, we know the market will not bear that. And the reason that number is so high is because my units is still sitting at the default, the number 1. However, this rabbit poop, I'm going to be able to do 100 bags of it at 100 1-pound bags. So I'm going to go ahead and change my number of units to 100. And that will adjust everything accordingly. So now I've got 100 bags. I got enough supplies and I factored everything in that will allow for me to get 100 bags, 100 1-pound units taken care of. And I've also got a little markup there for retail, and I've got my wholesale pricing. So as we look over at the retail tab, it will automatically tell me how many bags of rabbit fertilizer I need to sell in order to hit my monthly farm income goal of $10,000 a month. I would need to sell 944 bags of poop in order to hit that goal. Now, we know that that's something that's kind of hard to do, right? So that's why it's so important, and that illustrates why you need more than one cash crop. You don't want to put the burden of your monthly income on just one cash crop. It's just not fair, right? So what I want to do also is to remind you that this is editable. And if I didn't want to make $10,000 a month and I only wanted to make $5,000 a month, I can change that number and it would automatically adjust the number of units that I would need to sell in order to reach that number. But I'm going to go back because that's my goal and I'm sticking to it, right? So $10,000 a month is what I want. If I was to do that with just rabbit fertilizer alone, it would take me 944 units. And that would also mean that I need to go find 4,718 people so that I could, get them into my database in order to be able to market to them and expect that 944 of them would actually buy, which represents 20% or 1 out of every 5. So you see how this works? Let's go ahead and go to cash crop number 2. Okay, so cash crop number 2 is going to be soap. So let's look at it. So the supplies that I'm going to need for soap are going to be some lye. And I'm going to be buying in bulk. So let's just say my lye cost me $100. Essential oils. My essential oils are going to be the best essential oils that I could find. So we're going to say that's going to cost me $200. And the next supply I'm going to need is rubbing alcohol. And that's going to cost me $4. And if I can think of any other supplies, I will put those there. But down, let's go to equipment. Equipment, I'm going to need molds. Let's say that costs me $50. Let's say that my bowls and pitchers are going to cost me, let's say I find them at yard sales and I can get a deal on them, $40. Utensils, my spatulas and my whisks and all of those different things. Let's say I yard sale those as well and get those for $30. Then let's move on to my packaging. And let's say my packaging costs, I'm just making up numbers here, $130. And then let's go over to, let's see, what else do we have? We have packaging. Let's see here, the wire cut, the soap cutter, the wire soap cutter. So let's get that in there. And the one that I want is like almost $400. So let's go ahead and put that there. Allows you to cut 10 1-inch bars at a time. And my PPE, which is what I'm going to call it. That's my eyeglasses, my gloves, and all of that kind of stuff. Let's call that $40. And let's not forget our stick mixer. And I've already got one of those, but let's just call that $40. And then let's also don't forget your scale, your digital scale, and that needs to be able to weigh over 16 ounces. And so we're going to call that $40. Again, I'm just making up numbers here. And then we're also going to make sure we do a thermometer. So I've got one of those, but I'm just going to pretend like I'm going to buy another one. Digital thermometer. And I don't know how much those cost. So we're just going to pretend like they cost $50. Okay. So that's how you do it. You go through, and again, this is just me just kind of doing it off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure I'm leaving out some things, but you put your supplies, you put your equipment, and now let's go down to labor. So it's going to be a little bit longer for me at the beginning because soaping is new to me. So I'm going to go ahead and say from supply order to actual production and mixing and pouring of the molds and removing from the molds and trimming and packaging and everything like that. For my first few batches, I'm going to say it's going to take me from 15 hours from start to finish over several weeks, right? Because you have to let them cure because I'm going to be using the cold process and eventually I'll be using the hot process as well. So I'm going to say 15 hours. Next, how much per hour? Well, I typically could probably demand a lot more per hour than I'm going to put here, but I'm just going to keep in mind what I said in the previous video, which was think about how much you would want to pay someone if they were doing this for you. So I want somebody who's going to be, able to follow directions and keep, safety in the forefront and all of that. So I would be willing to pay somebody $20 an hour to make sure they did it just right, right? Now on my margins for the soap, I'm going to leave those at 35% right now, just because this is a new category for me and I don't want to be overly greedy. I was a little greedy in the rabbit fertilizer just because I know that market and I know that there's not a lot of players in that space. Whereas in the soaping market, there's a lot more competition. So I'm going to keep that in mind and I'm going to leave my markup, my retail markup the same. Holy moly. As you can see here, the retail pricing is saying that I need to charge $2,210.76 per bar. We know that's not going to work. And we also know the reason that that's the way it is because I only have the default number 1 in as the number of units. So let's just say I have enough pounds of material to make 150 bars of soap. Okay, let's just call it 200. Okay, so I have enough material to make 200 units of soap. And so that means I need to wholesale them at $9 and then my retail would be $11. Well, let's hop back over to the retail tab and let's look at how that all pans out. So now I've got my second column in. You'll notice this first cell is empty because this is already taken care of by the rabbit fertilizer kind of being on its own. When I've added the second cash crop, it automatically tells me how many units of soap I need to sell, and it reflects 50% of its contribution of my monthly goal. So I would need to sell 452 bars of soap and 472 bags of fertilizer. Do you see how adding a cash crop takes the pressure off of the previous cash crop? And that's how it will happen as we continue to go down the line. So now I see that I need to do a total of 924 units, and I still need almost 5,000 people, 4,621 to be exact people in my database. I don't need quite as many as I did when I was just dealing with the rabbit fertilizer, but I still need 4,621 people in the database if I'm expecting for 1 out of every 5 of them to do something, which is buy my product. Now, we've looked at the retail tab. Let's look at the wholesale tab. So on the wholesale tab, we didn't look at that from the rabbit fertilizer, but we can see here that if I was going to be selling this at the wholesale price of $9.22, that I would actually need to sell a lot more than on the retail tab. That makes sense because the wholesale price is less. So whereas I only needed to produce 944 bags for retail, if I'm just focusing on wholesale, I got to produce a lot more. So I might want to take that into consideration when it comes to wholesale customers versus retail customers. And then when we add the second cash crop, and again, you can come over here and you can edit anything that's not shaded, right? But when we come to the second cash crop, we see that the same thing is the case for the soap. I'm going to have to do way more in the way of production because the price is less. Okay, that's just the way it goes. So if I'm going to do soap wholesale at $9.61 a bar, then I'm going to definitely have to sell more, 520 units opposed to the 452 units. Now let's look down here at the bottom. About the same number of people. Actually, let me switch back over. At the bottom, I'm actually going to have more people in my database in order to make that law of numbers thing work, that 1 out of every 5 things happen. So as you can see, this calculator does it all for you. You can take your time. You can figure out, okay, how much do I really need in order to produce, in order to replace my income realistically, so that you can actually do what your goal is. And if you're watching this video, you're probably like me and you want to farm, you want to homestead full time, and you just can't let go of your job because there's just no way. So you want to figure out how to get that to happen. And this calculator can show you that. Now there's more to it. Obviously, you have to create a product that a niche audience wants. You have to be solving a very painful problem for that niche audience. And you have to provide great customer service and all of those marketing things that have to happen. But this is the beginning of the process, is planning. Okay, what do I need to produce? What's in demand? How much can I charge? And this calculator helps you figure all of that out. And it shows you cash crop by cash crop what you need to do in order to make that happen. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. I can't wait to see your feedback, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.